I'd like to move on to our next speaker, Dr. Darrin Morrissey, who's the Director of Programs in Science Foundation Ireland. And we've heard from the Minister about the investment that the state is putting into research and innovation through Science Foundation Ireland. And I'm great to see that Darrin straddles both industry and the state sector. Over to you, Darrin.
Okay, so thank you for the opportunity to present and to represent Science Foundation at this important gathering of business, academia and other interested parties in the research and innovation space. Before, as I prepared this presentation, I really noted that one of the objectives of this meeting is to outline how bringing university innovation can be carried through to commercial reality. And this fits really closely with SFI's overall mission statement, which is a vision to deliver really excellent research and bring it through to real manifest impact for society and the economy more broadly. So my presentation today will focus on three dimensions. One is for anybody who in the audience who hasn't come across SFI before, is to just share with you a bit of information on us as a foundation. I'll move on to talking about our research funding mechanisms, our programs, particularly ones that are of interest to, or of most interest to industry and business. And I'll then move on to talk about the impact and share with you some examples of impact from research that's happening in the Irish academia sector, and share with you some metrics as well. So before talking about SFI though, I just wanted to share with you a quote from a quite famous electrical engineer by the name of Fred Terman. Fred Terman was a guy who, in Stanford, back in the 30s, 40s, 50s, was seen or is perceived by many to be the founder, the guy who really had the idea for Silicon Valley, a real visionary. And if you think back to the time when this point was, or this quote was made, 1947, the war had just finished. There was a big debate going on about the role of technology and innovation and how it could help the world in the future. Particularly in US government, in US corporate sector, there was a discussion about return on investment and whether it really was worth investing in the technology sector. Fred Terman was a visionary. He set about putting a huge amount of investment into Stanford's R&D sector and R&D research facilities. And today we think of Stanford as, we all know it as one of the top universities in the world for innovation output. But back in 1947, it was a relative third level, relative backwater of academic excellence. It really didn't rate at all. And within about 20 years, startups of the likes of Hewlett-Packard and Cisco had started to develop on the campus of Stanford. So this is a guy with vision and a guy who could see the possibilities of investing in innovation. I think if you take us back to 1999, 98, thereabouts, Ireland was pretty much in the similar position, a relative backwater when it came to innovation and research. Good stuff happening in parts of the ecosystem, but the outputs weren't fantastic, and we rated quite low. We were really a third-tier country in terms of research outputs. That was when SFI was founded. So it was founded under the auspices of the Department of Jobs, Enterprise and Innovation. So the minister who has just, I think, exited would be, I suppose, our ministerial head. We sit very closely with Enterprise Ireland and Science and IDA. So we're the third leg of the stool that develops the enterprise sector in Ireland. The role we play, though, is to develop the research academic base. We were founded and modelled on the National Science Foundation in the US. And the NSF is focused really on developing capabilities and infrastructure for in which excellent research can happen. And since 2000, we have put about 2.2 billion euros worth of funding into the Irish research ecosystem through about 4,000 awards. And annually, our budget is about 160 million. So again, the Minister referenced in his opening speech an extra 13 million euros worth of funding this year. Thankfully, we've got the majority of that funding, and we're putting that through our programs now, again, to feed the ecosystem and to feed research excellence. So moving on. 2000, the year 2000 was obviously a very different time to now. There was, in the intervening period, there was a lot of money flowing through the system. And clearly, we've gone through an economic straitened times. So back in 2012, we had to adjust as an organization as well. And what we did was we really sought a renewed mandate from government, and we did this through developing a strategy to 2020, which we call Agenda 2020. There's 4 pillars, 4 strategic objectives to this strategy. The first is to be the best science funding agency in the world at delivering impact from excellent research and really developing or creating value for money. That is, our real raison d'etre. And underpinned by the legislation, which again, Minister English mentioned, the legislation that allowed us to broaden out from just being a basic-oriented science researcher to also being able to fund in the area of applied research, which is really important. The second pillar is to really foster partnership, and foster partnership in various areas. One is to build partnership with other funding agencies around the world, the likes of the Wellcome Trust, the Royal Society in the UK, the National Science Foundation and NIH in the US, the Department of Employment and Learning in Northern Ireland. These would be some of our academic funding partners in other jurisdictions. But I think for this audience, most importantly, is developing partnership with business and co-funding opportunities with business and industry. The other 2 pillars are also really important, making sure that our public are really engaged in science and making sure that our organisation functions really efficiently. So we do what we do with under 50 people working as efficiently as I think any modern public sector organisation can operate. So moving on to our programs. Now, we have over 30 different funding programs that we run at any point in time. And I can't go into all of the details of those funding programs. Suffice it to say, if you go onto the SFI website, you'll find all of the details. But I will focus on just, I suppose, the buckets of different types of opportunities, because what we try and do is we try and fund to drive and to promote different aspects of research in Ireland. So you can see that we've got 12 funding programs that are focused on developing early stage researchers, building the talent from the bottom up. We have another funding bucket that focuses on attracting talent into Ireland, attracting international stars to come and work in our centres. The one in the middle there, the large-scale research centres, is referencing, again, what Minister English spoke about, the SFI research centres and funding in that sector. And I think most important for this audience, we've put together a suite of 5 programs currently that promote industry partnership between academia and industry. And what I just wanted to do is break with a little piece of data, which for me justifies exactly why we bring industry into scope. Because Science Foundation Ireland is a founder member of a group of countries that have come together, the 6 small advanced economies. And with Elsevier, the publishing company, we do research on research outputs that come from those 6 countries. The 6 countries in question, which are on the slide, including ourselves, are countries that are relatively small in terms of population size, have a similar size GDP economic output, and a similar technology focus. And there's lots of data comes out of this research, but what I just wanted to point out here was the consistency of the data that comes out on this particular focus, which is the quality output that comes from research, depending on whether you collaborate or whether you don't collaborate. And basically, you can see that on the for each of these bars, you can see on the far right-hand side that if you're a single researcher working in a small laboratory on your own, your outputs are worse than if you collaborate. And your outputs go up if you collaborate within your own institution with other researchers. They go up. They go up if you collaborate with other people in your country, so national collaboration. They go up again if you go international. And they're at the peak if you collaborate as a researcher with industry. And I think this flies in the face maybe of popular perception that research output quite often is at a lower level if industry involved. In fact, the data says it's at a higher level. So again, that's the rationale for us developing 5 programs. Our Research Centres program, our Research Centres Spokes program, Partnerships, which is a suite of a couple of programs, Industry Fellowships, and then also our TIDA Awards, which is a joint award that we make with Enterprise Ireland. Now, I'll focus on a couple of these. I won't focus on TIDA today, but again, you can find details on our website. So firstly, Research Centres. Research Centres is our most ambitious program to date. Research Centres comes from a decision taken back in 2012 to run a couple of calls that would challenge the higher education institutes, the 7 or 8 universities out there, the 14 or 15 IoTs, to come together and to really, under certain thematic areas, come together and maximise the collective strengths. The themes were selected based on national research prioritisation, number 1, based on the fact that Ireland, there are certain gaps in the market that Ireland could fill, number 2. So trying to find areas where Ireland could be the best of the best. And I suppose number 3, playing to some of our existing or pre-existing strengths in particular areas. And the upshot of these 2 calls, one of which ran in 2013 and one of which ran in 2014, was 12 centres across the university and IoT ecosystem were funded to the tune of over €500 million. Now that's €500 million worth of funding that will go out over the next 5 to 6 years. And it's actually co-funding. What's really important is that at least 30% of the funding will come from industry directly. This is a really new departure for Ireland. And again, I can't go into the detail on the centres, but I just want to do is give you an idea of some of the sectors that we've created these centres in. Obviously, ICT and technology is represented strongly, so 4 centres in that area. 1 centre represented in the photonics space, the IPIC Centre. A centre focused on pharma and a centre focused on food, broadly food and health sectors. Marine energy renewables focused on 1 centre, and then a geosciences centre, and last but not least, advanced materials and medical devices. And just to give you an idea how it works, I'll pick one example, which is the Insight Centre up in the top there in the ICT space. The Insight Centre focuses on big data and data analytics. And that is a conglomeration of 4 universities, so DCU, UCD, NUIG and UCC that come together and work in that space. €75 million worth of funding is going into that centre. It's creating a huge scale and it is creating excellence in terms of outputs. And Insight now is becoming really world-renowned for the role that it plays in this key area of data analytics. It just gives you an idea. Okay, so how those centres exist. If you're a business and you want to interact with those centres and work with those centres, how do you do that? And you do that through a program which we call the Spokes program. So the research centre is a hub, and you can attach as many spokes into that hub as you want. And basically, what the program of research centre Spokes involves is a co-funding opportunity where you come with a proposal with academia, so business and academia working together. And you come and SFI, through its international peer review panel, evaluates the quality of the research and funds. Now, the funding is a shared funding, so there's 2 ways of doing it. One is through fixed calls, which we run 1 fixed call every year, and that's a competitive process. So the split in that instance is a 70% SFI or exchequer funding compared to 30% industry funding. But there's also a way of engaging day-to-day in a more ad hoc way, and that, because it's non-competitive, is a 50-50 funding opportunity. So that's what we call a rolling spoke. And if a research centre doesn't exist in the area where you're interested in, well, then the possibility is also to partner with a university or a research group in that particular area as well. And that's what we call partnerships. And partnerships is essentially the same thing as spokes. It's very flexible, very adaptable. And I suppose really what the objective is always, in this instance, to go for 50-50 funding. So again, peer reviewed, so it will always meet the excellence bar, but it will be 50-50 split between ourselves and the industry partner. So the last program that I just want to say a few words on, but I think it's an important one because it is one that is kind of an entry point for business and industry who have never engaged in the Irish academic system before, and that is industry fellowships. This is quite a small program in the sense that per industry fellowship, the maximum that SFI can fund is about 120,000. So whereas we were talking 500,000 plus on previous schemes, this we're talking about 120k for a 12-month period. But it's a really interesting program because what it does is it allows industry and researchers, I suppose, to sample each other's wares. What it allows a researcher to do in an academic centre is to go and work for a year in industry on something collaborative, or vice versa, somebody from an industry lab to come and work in a university. It's a great opportunity because it is people-focused primarily. So what we're doing is we're trying to kind of stimulate interactions, but then also stimulate people to, I suppose, learn from each other and potentially build careers either in academia or in industry. So there's kind of cross-fertilization. But as well as that, what it does is it gives a real bite-size exposure of each other between academia and industry and get them working together. And I think what we expect from this program is that it'll start to build bigger partnerships and more sustainable partnerships. So that's an opportunity. And again, the details are on our website, but you have the bones of it there. So what I'm going to do then is move on to the third part of the presentation, which talks about impact and outputs. And really, if this is what we're putting in terms of investment, so, you know, trying to build a group of people working in big centres of scale with various research projects ongoing. So as things stand, we fund as many as 700 research projects in Ireland. What are the outputs? And the outputs we measure year on year on year. And what I'm going to show first is some of the academic outputs from SFI funded research back in 2013, which is the last time that we did a full census. So the data you see is 2013 data. New data will be coming out in the next few months for 2014. So you can see that as many as nearly 2,500 scientific papers and as many as nearly 1,300, 1,400 collaborations across 45 countries, which is great, and that's fantastic. What it does is and again, it was referenced by Minister English earlier on, and also referenced by John Shaw in the previous presentation. It has propelled Ireland up the rankings in terms of our reputation and our standing in research. So what we have is we broke in 2009 into the top 20 in terms of the quality of our scientific research in terms of our citation standing. And we stayed there for the last 5 or 6 years, which was no mean feat considering investment couldn't grow like it was growing before. So that's really great. Nature Journal in 2013 flagged Ireland as one of the top 5 up-and-coming research locations for future impact and innovation. And then we rank very highly in certain thematic areas, which I won't list out, but you can see them on the slide. But you can be sitting in the audience, and I suppose if you're a member of the general public, you can say, well, look, that's great. This is all very academic. What good is this? Where is the return coming from this? So to go back to this slide, I'm really happy to be able to say that, again, based on the data that we take in and analyze for 2013, this is what we've managed to deliver in terms of economic impact. So remember the figure of 160 million of investment in a year. Well, 125 million of that comes back to us in the form of non-exchequer investment in research. Some of that is European money. So again, referenced earlier on, Horizon 2020. So predominantly that's European money. However, there's a fair bit of it, about 30 or 40 million back in 2013 was industry money. 54 patent filings, 11 patents actually awarded, 27 license agreements, 4 spin-out companies, which doesn't sound like a lot, but for 2013 actually, and given the times that we're in it, actually we're quite happy with it, and we're very confident that 2014 will see at least a doubling of that number. And 900 collaborations with multinationals. I think that's, or rather with companies, I shouldn't say multinationals because it's a mix of multinationals and SMEs ongoing with the Irish research community. And this, again, depicts kind of the scale of that. Obviously, there's not every logo up there. But I think that for me, the bit that is the most encouraging is that there is this split between MNCs and SMEs. It's not just about big multinational companies coming in with big bucks. It's also SMEs coming in and through different programs and different devices, including the EI programs, able to interact and work with researchers in our university and IoT sector. So what I'm going to do is, I could pull hundreds of cases of actual manifest impact coming from these interactions. I'm going to pull just 3 examples. There are 3, I think, reasonably representative examples. One is of photonics, which is a multinational company based down in Cork, who have interacted with the CIT Tyndall under the auspices of the IPIC Centre. Now, what photonics do is they manufacture essentially lighting systems or illumination systems which are founded on laser technology, so modular laser technology. And what they do is they have, over the last few years, been building a relationship with CIT and Tyndall, and a couple of weeks ago signed a long-term licensing agreement where they will focus a team of people in the 2 institutions on trying to really improve and upgrade the technology that photonics are producing. And what it's doing is it has the potential to open completely new markets for photonics. And I think the impact in that instance is, yeah, it's for the company, but the company is based in Ireland. The company employs Irish people in a manufacturing location, and it has the potential to really build photonics our Irish platform. The second example I have, and actually interestingly in the magazine, the Research and Innovation magazine, it's on the front page. The research centre predominantly based in TCD, under the auspices of the Cran Institute, and this is a relationship with Thomas Swan. Thomas Swan are an advanced chemical production company. They're working on advanced materials and particularly in the graphene space. And again, Thomas Swan, who are UK-based, they're actually not Irish-based at all in terms of their manufacture. So you can say, okay, well, what's the benefit for Ireland here? What the benefit for Ireland is that TCD and Ireland are really making a name for the country of Ireland as a place where advanced materials development happens. And consequent to that, other companies are starting to look at Ireland and say, could this be a place where discrete manufacturing or 3D manufacturing could happen? Could this be a global centre of excellence for that type of production? So again, the impact sometimes is indirect rather than direct, but in this instance, the relationship with Thomas Swan and the Amber Centre is really tight and really quality. And lastly, just an example of where we ourselves as an organisation, so SFI, have created a partnership with Pfizer to stimulate activity in the biomedical space in Ireland. We ran a joint call in 2014, and it's a good possibility that we'll run the call again in 2015. And what it basically is trying to do is, so I'm on 1 minute, I'm going to start speaking more quickly. What we're basically trying to do here is bring Pfizer's focus to Ireland, not just as a location where you manufacture pharmaceuticals, but actually as a location where you can find excellent R&D possibilities and potentially locate excellent R&D and high-value R&D jobs. We funded 5 researchers or groups of researchers across 5 universities, and the expectation is we'll do the same in 2015. And again, the impact here is a long game, but already we're starting to see Pfizer considering investing in high-value jobs in their Grange Castle campus out in West Dublin. Okay, so in conclusion, Minister English referenced the maintenance, at the very least, the maintenance of strong funding for science in Ireland over the last number of years. You can see SFI's annual budget has been growing, did go through ropey times for 1 year, but thankfully stabilised significantly, and we're now starting to see growth again. So I think the government and successive governments need to be commended for having the vision and having the perseverance to stick with funding in research. Another really positive thing is that, and this is a busy slide, but basically Ireland is circled up at the top there. Basically what this is showing is, for the amount of investment that we put in, what are we getting back in terms of innovation? And this is basically showing that Ireland, albeit the level of investment at a GDP, at a percentage GDP level, we're about average in Europe. We're punching way above our weight in terms of what we're getting out. So it's really depicting Ireland as, I would say, arguably the most efficient country in Europe for the money it puts into scientific technology and engineering research and what it gets out. And to go back to Fred Terman, who I mentioned at the very start, he spoke about investment, he spoke about the possibilities. In this instance, you can see the possibilities. For every euro that Ireland invests now incrementally in research, there really is a great foundation for yielding tremendous innovation outputs from it. In summary, for industry partners who haven't engaged before, who might be in the room, I really would encourage you to consider talking to your academic research partners potentially. There's many reasons. There's people in institutions, there's excellence and impact, there's partnership, a real partnership mindset that's starting to grow in our universities, and there's a range of flexible programs which SFI have to offer. So really, on behalf of SFI, thanks for the time. I would encourage you to engage with us if you need any introductions to potential university partners. Thank you.